Welcome to Wannabe Clutter-Free, formerly Wannabe Minimalist, the podcast for busy families who are tired of the chaos, fed up with being overwhelmed, and ready to enjoy life again. Each week, we talk about how to let go of the clutter so that you can focus on the things that actually matter. And it's not just physical clutter. We talk about the mental and emotional stuff too, because if it's holding you back, it's time to ditch it. I share what I've done in my own life to declutter, organize, and calm the chaos, but you won't just hear it from me. There are amazing guests too. It's practical, doable, and simple for those of us that want to be clutter-free. As winter rolls in, so do the challenges of cold air and dry indoor environments. If you're like me, you know how tough this season can be on our health, from stuffy noses to itchy skin. But I found a trusted solution that has been making winters more bearable for 125 years. Vicks humidifiers. With the air getting drier and humidity levels dropping below 40%, it's no wonder we suffer from congestion and dryness. Thankfully, Vicks offers the only humidifier with a 1-2-3 combination. It combines a cough suppressant, soothing menthol vapors, and a hydrating mist that not only eases the cough and congestion, but also brings much needed moisture back into our living spaces. There's something instantly comforting about the scent of Vicks Vapo. It takes me back to being cared for as a kiddo myself. I was initially hesitant about using a humidifier, but this one is effortless to maintain. It's easy to use and clean, making it a non-invasive solution that fits seamlessly into our daily lives. And here's some great news. You can find the Vicks Cool Relief along with Vapo Steam and a variety of Vapo Pads on Amazon. There's a special offer on Amazon on the Vicks Cool Relief Humidifier where you can get 20% off your purchase. Just go to Amazon.com and search Vicks VUL 600 Cool Relief Humidifier. It has a blue tank with white in the center. Be sure to click the coupon to get that discount. You need this for wintertime comfort. Well, hey there, my friend. Welcome back to the show. My name is Deanna Yates, and you are listening to episode 244 of the Wannabe Clutter-Free podcast. On today's episode, I am chatting with Risa Williams about how to get stuff done without the stress. She's written a new book. It is a great one, and I think you're going to love it. I love all of Risa's books, and I think you're going to like this one too. So let's learn a little bit about her. Risa has been on the show multiple times because she keeps coming up with some great information to bring to us. She is a licensed therapist, a time management expert, and an award-winning book author. Her 5 self-help books include Get Stuff Done Without the Stress. That's what we're talking about today. The Procrastination Playbook, The Ultimate Anxiety Toolkit, The Ultimate Time Management Toolkit, and the Ultimate Self-Esteem Toolkit. She is also the host of the Motivation Mindset podcast. I've been a guest on her show, so definitely check it out. Risa has also been featured in Forbes magazine, HuffPost, Wired magazine, Bustle, Psych Today, Very Well Mind, Therapist magazine, Women's World, Parade, and Business Insider. Whew! If that wasn't enough, she is also a busy mom of 2, a screenwriter, and a university professor. So check her out. Listen to this episode. Risa has a lot of wisdom to share with us. But before we get into the episode, I would love to just take a minute to say thank you to you so much for joining me today. I hope you get something out of this episode. Risa always brings some great tips, and I do think you will get something tangible to take away with you today. And if you do like this episode, can you do me a quick favor? Can you subscribe so you're not missing any of the great information we have coming to you this year? Also, leave it a rating and a review to let other people know if you like this show, other people like you are going to like it too. It really helps me out and I really appreciate it. And then don't forget, you can get show notes for today's episode by going to wannabeclutterfree.com/244. Again, that's wannabeclutterfree/244. All right, let's get into the conversation. Well, hey, Risa, welcome back to Wannabe Clutter-Free. How you doing today?
I'm good. I'm so happy to see you again. It's always fun to talk to you. I always enjoy our conversation so much.
Me too. And I've had you on so many times because I love the topics you talk about, and you're constantly writing new books. And this newest one I think is going to help so many people. It's talking about letting go of stress. Give me the title one more time because I just gave my copy away. I'm super sad about it, but I'm waiting for it to come out.
Get stuff done without the stress.
Get stuff done without the stress. We all could use this. And so I'm really excited to talk about it. But for those who are new to the podcast, can you please give us a quick intro and tell us what you do?
Sure, of course. My name is Risa Williams, and I'm a therapist and author. Here in Los Angeles, I write a lot of self help books. I have a bunch out, including the Procrastination Playbook, the Ultimate Time Management Toolkit, and other ones that you can find on my website at risawilliams.com. And I love talking to Deanna. I've been on the show maybe over the last 3 or 4 years. I think we've been talking.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. It's been a fun relationship to see foster, and we've been collaborating on lots of different things. And so it's really, really fun to have you back. I love this new book. It's a little different than your others. So, those that have picked up your others that are more workbook like, I really enjoyed reading this one. You have a really nice writing style that is just easy to relate to, easy to understand, and it just flows so nicely. It's not real heavy.
Well, that's good to hear. Thank you.
Yeah, it's I've read a lot. I love reading. I've read a lot of books. I read a lot of nonfiction and a lot of self-help. And sometimes they're just really difficult to get into. And this one was just so easy for me to digest. I absolutely loved it. So what inspired you to write this one?
Well, this one came from I've already tackled the subject of anxiety and time management and procrastination. And what I was starting to see over the last 5 years was that burnout and stress were really problems for a lot of people. A lot of the clients I work with are busy, they're parents, they're trying to run their families and have relationships, and they're also trying to manage businesses, some of them. A lot of them are working in tech, a lot of them are working in entertainment, a lot of them are creative. And there's just so many areas they're trying to manage all at once. And what tends to happen is people get really off kilter, really off balance while they're pursuing their goals. So over the years, I mean, I can relate to this. This has happened to me so many times. As I talk about in my book, I hit such a high level of burnout in my late 30s that I actually ended up in the ER. I was completely knocked out. Like everything was going wrong in my body all at once. My body was like shutting down. And I had this epiphany like, what am I working so hard for? Why would somebody overwork themselves into the hospital? And all these things were going on in my head. And as I read about in the book, in that moment, my work supervisor was texting me saying like all this stuff to do for work, even though they knew I was in the emergency room. And I just had this like out of body experience. What are we doing? Like, this is nuts. We can't keep overworking ourselves to this state. And now that I've been a therapist for so many years, I see so many people reaching that level of burnout where their bodies are shutting down, things are falling apart in different areas of their life. And they're not considering, am I being kind to myself? Am I taking care of my brain and body in the pursuit of these goals? Or have these goals become so important that I'm willing to sacrifice my own well being in the pursuit of them? So that's really what the book is about. Can we achieve our goals and work on things that give us fulfillment without tipping ourselves into total burnout, exhaustion, and fatigue?
And I think it's so interesting how you can be in that moment of like, okay, I'm stressed, but isn't everyone stressed? And then you don't realize that you're pushing yourself way, way harder than you actually realize. So, with stress being at an all-time high, what are some early signs that we're heading into burnout, and what can we do to prevent it?
That's a good question. I think one of the main problems with stress is that it's so abstract and we don't really think about it as a tangible thing that's happening to us until our stress is so high that it's impossible to ignore. But at that point, we're already teetering into burnout, overwhelm, possible physical illness. Usually by the time I get most people to admit they're stressed out, the stress has been running so high for so long, it's like a chronic level of stress. And that's what I'm seeing in people is there's a lack of awareness of what stress building in their body even feels like. So I've talked about this in my other books. I have the stress ruler where you kind of notice the different nuanced notches of stress as it's going up throughout the day. Like, what does a level 3 feel like? What does a level 4 feel like? What does an 8 feel like? What does a 9? And I know for some people that's hard to do because they've never really thought about stress as something you can measure on a spectrum. But it begins to help us get a grasp on what's happening to our brain and body throughout the day. So usually when I start working with people, they realize, wow, I think as I'm learning to rate the different levels of stress, what's happening is I'm noticing I must be at a pretty high level of stress. That's my norm. And I don't remember what being at a really low level of stress is like for a long period of time. Usually, when I ask people, when's the last time you were below a five? They'll say, well, when I took that vacation last summer, or there were a couple days, in July when I went to the beach or something like this. And they start to realize, wow, that's not happening on a weekly basis. On a weekly basis, I am more comfortably being stressed out than I am feeling calm and relaxed. And so in the book I talk about increasing your capacity for calm, right? It's almost like stretching that muscle. When we've been chronically busy for so long, we almost become addicted to the adrenaline and the cortisol and that go 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 feeling that being still can feel painfully uncomfortable for people. When they finally slow down, it can feel like torture sometimes. People will describe it as this uncomfortable, like, I don't know what to do. I want to go. I want to fill it up with stuff. And we just need to get a little more comfortable by visiting that place inside of ourselves that's still and calm in little tiny blips until we grow that muscle a little, that we can sit there and feel calm and not beat ourselves up about doing the next thing on our to-do list and just be and learn that that feeling can be pleasant the more we practice it.
So good. And yeah, a lot of the people that listen to this show are busy moms and they're like, but I have to do it all. And if I don't do it all, it's not going to get done. Or, all these balls that I'm juggling are going to come crashing down. So, how can we start to let go of that pressure a little bit? How do we start to sit in that uncomfortable moment? What does that look like?
Yeah, well, that's a good point because moms are experts at getting stuff done in a way. Like, that's all we're doing all day long. And we're so good at taking care of our kids and managing all the needs of our kids that we almost forget that we have needs too. And our needs get pushed further and further down. And those needs don't go away. They just bubble under the surface until one day we're just so exhausted we can't do anything, or we catch the flu, or we get angry for no reason, or the emotions are coming out at inappropriate times then. So we need to work on making self-care non-negotiable for us, especially as moms.
Have you ever felt like your metabolism just isn't what it used to be? That's exactly where I found myself recently, which is why I'm turning to an innovative tool that's helping me understand how my body processes food. Lumen. It's like having a metabolic coach right in your hand. Lumen is the world's first device that measures your metabolism through your breath in real time. Just by breathing into Lumen each morning, it tells me whether I'm burning fats or carbs. And this insight helps me adjust my daily nutrition and fitness routines to optimize my metabolic health. And the benefits? Well, they're huge because your metabolism is at the center of everything your body does. It's not just about weight management, it's about feeling energized and ready to tackle whatever comes my way. Lumen also adapts its recommendations if you're going through hormonal changes like menopause, helping manage those pesky cravings and maintain your energy. What's really impressive is how Lumen tailors your nutrition for the day based on your morning breath analysis. It even gives you feedback before and after workouts and meals, so you know how to keep your metabolism firing effectively. Take the next step to improving your health today. Go to lumen.me/wanna to get 20% off your Lumen. That's lumen.me/wanna for 20% off your purchase. Thank you, Lumen, for sponsoring this episode.
I think moms are the number one people I talk to about this every week. It's like you have to take care of yourself. And what does that look like? Well, it could just be taking breaks in between stressful things. So you just did a bunch of stressful things in a row. Take a little break to just sit there and let your body reset. And it's about when you're taking a break to be intentional about bringing the stress down during the break. So that's what I call a real break, as opposed to a just rush, 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 go, go, go break, where you're saying, yeah, I took a break to drink a cup of coffee. Well, were you doing 10 different things while you're probably on your phone, answering emails, scheduling appointments for your kids? That's not a real break. A real break is downtime for your brain and body. It's letting it go. It's letting yourself have no thoughts for a second. And knowing that when you're resting, it is productive. Your body is so busy when you're resting, when you're actually just taking a nap or lying there staring at the ceiling. Your body is busy. Your body is storing memories, it's digesting food, it's going into rest and digest mode. So, like, the parts of your body are still being productive, and they need you to slow down so your body can kind of catch up to where you are, energy wise with your brain. And it's about bringing the brain and body kind of back together and aligning them so that you can function better for your kids and for yourself and give everyone in your family all the energy that they need.
Yeah, so good. Yeah, you talk about, as I'm sitting there, I'm going, okay, coffee. And then I'm like making the grocery list and I'm folding the laundry and like,
It's not a real break. We're always moving and we're always going. Yeah.
yeah, and the mind is just constantly. So you then talk about this concept of healthy productivity, which is kind of what then popped in my head there. So how is that in contrast to toxic or not positivity, productivity? How is that in contrast?
I'm trying to introduce that as a term, toxic productivity, because I see this a lot in our hustle culture where we have these unstated beliefs that are kind of forming the way we're pushing ourselves and being so hard on ourselves. So some of those things I list out, and this might be different for everybody. You have to kind of feel it out in your own personality and what you kind of do that tips you into toxic productivity mode. I know for me, when I've been there in the past, it's when I focus too much on output and not enough on well being. And I focus too much on checking off the to do list, and I lose my sense of balance overall and like being in the moment and being okay with things just progressing at the speed they're going to progress. So, toxic productivity, I call it like factory robot mode, where you're just demanding all this output of yourself and you're not allowing for flexibility each day. Like some days, your kid is sick or you're not feeling well, your energy is lower. You don't have to do as many things on your to do list. You can match it to where your energy is. And as moms, we often don't do this. We just push through and we treat ourselves like a factory robot, like, okay, dishes, laundry, go on the thing. And we're like sneezing and we have a cold and we're just like pushing through it nonstop because output becomes more important than our own well being. And so to shift into what I call a healthy productivity mindset, this is seeing things through a self kindness lens. How can I befriend myself today? How can I help myself out a little more? How can I help my brain and body? Let's say I am feeling a little bit sick. Okay, I'm going to slow things down. I'm going to only do the easiest, lowest level task I need to do today. And I'm going to take care of myself and talk to myself in a kind way, like, good job, me. You got through that. This is a really hard day and you did it anyway. And sort of learning to be your own friend instead of your own enemy while you're achieving the things on your to do list.
Oh, that is so good. And it's the stuff we all need to hear. Like, even if we think like, I've got this down and, I give myself breaks. I mean, I definitely have been in camp unhealthy and toxic productivity for sure. And it's definitely, I think it's why your books relate to me so much. And I really enjoy reading them.
Oh, good. Well, you and I were talking because we both run our own businesses. And I think as moms who run their own businesses, we are very susceptible to getting into toxic productivity mode because we put so much pressure on ourselves to keep generating the business, right? And then there's nobody stopping you saying, whoa, like this is too much this month. We're our own boss, so you can really go down that rabbit hole of not knowing where the healthy level of taking something on is. And I think over the years, probably you've learned, okay, that's too many things in 1 month, right? To do for me.
Yep, for sure. Yeah. And so one of the biggest people, or yeah, okay, so myself included, right? I think one of the biggest struggles is feeling like I never get enough done. And I know a lot of people feel this, right? Because that constant to do, it's always there, right? The to do list is always there. So why do we have such a hard time feeling done? And how can we change that? How can we set like this is a reasonable amount to expect from myself today or this month or, this year even? How do we get started that?
Well, Well, that's something I talk about because it is something I'm seeing. A lot of the high achieving clients I work with are achieving amazing, mind blowing things, and they never feel done with any of it. And then all the everyday things they never feel done. And part of that is done is a feeling, and we need to practice it so that we can feel it. So if you're never letting yourself feel done, even with little things, you're not going to let yourself feel done when you do a big, mind blowing thing because you haven't practiced that feeling at all. So we haven't paved the pathway in our brain. So I start with, first of all, when you do little things throughout the day, like just putting the laundry in the dryer or getting your kids to school, it's this level of self-encouragement that you need to introduce that you ramp up over time. So, good job, I did that. Oh, that's done. Look at that. The laundry is now done. Look at that. I got the kids to school. That's done. It's kind of using that language with yourself and letting your brain know, hey, that's done now. Or when you go to bed at night, did you do enough where you can say, you know what, that's done. That's a reasonable amount of stuff. I'm not a robot. I can't just go, 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 right? I'm a human being and I did enough and it's done now. So there is this level of introduce the self talk where you're using the word done with yourself a lot about little things so that when we get to the big things, you can actually connect the dots. And then the second part of that is I've used tracking for years because my brain will forget everything I do, all the steps, even just to be on this podcast. There were steps we had to take to coordinate and to make time and all that stuff. I'll forget all of it. So I keep a bullet journal, and every night I write down like 3 things I did that I'm proud of, that I took steps forward towards a goal. And I've been keeping the journal for so long, and all it is like 3 little bullet note things a day. I don't write a lot, just like did podcasts, sent off email, whatever. And then at the end of the month, I make myself review everything I did in the month. So I reread all those steps, and I know that sounds exhausting and kind of tedious to do, but what it does is it forms the memory in your brain of the path you walked and the steps you took. You're forming a visual journey. So I compare it to a map. It's like you're watching yourself cross a map in little dots, and your brain understands, oh, I did it. It's done. I took all those steps. And you give yourself credit, and it starts to build a sense of solid self esteem, which often as moms and women, we don't allow ourselves to feel. We don't allow ourselves to see, oh, I walked myself over here. That took all year to do this one thing. And I did it and it's done. And then that feeling of pride starts to kick in over time. It's also very good if you have imposter syndrome, as someone who's had imposter syndrome. It's the way I've kind of fixed that in myself over time is by showing myself irrefutable evidence that I did something and I can't argue with it and I can't dismiss it. I have to say, you know what? I actually did those things. I actually did write that book. I actually did go here. I actually did plan that trip and execute it because I'm making myself read it periodically and showing myself proof. So the last chapter of the book is all about that. It's like show yourself proof, and then what starts to happen is you become your own friend on the journey and you start to look for things you're doing every day so you can write them down in your little journal. Like what am I going to put as my 3 things? Oh, I did this, I did this, I did this. It's like you become that teacher giving yourself a gold star every day, and we build that voice inside of us. So that becomes the dominant voice instead of the critical voice that's always telling you you're not doing enough, you're never done, it's not good enough.
I love that switch. And it made me think of like a time lapse movie, right? Like, so you've seen, and we've all seen those on Instagram, like the person just like inches along a little bit on their path. And it just made me think that, like, those are those little steps. And I just saw myself like, okay, I really like that one. That's great.
And we all love those videos, don't we? I mean, I love watching those house shows where it's like fast motion and they're building a house from nothing. I'm like, this is so fulfilling in some way, watching these people in a time lapse video put up a house, right? So that's what we can do for ourselves. Watch yourself build those things. Get a little more curious and non judgmental about your own journey by tracking it. And then you start to see it more scientifically, like, ooh, if I just do this thing, look where it led me. And isn't that interesting? And we look at ourselves through a kinder lens, which is the whole point of the book. At the end of the book, I say, this book sounds like it's about goals, but what it's really about is learning to be your own friend and developing that self-kindness mindset that you just view your own life through kindness. And how can I help myself? How can I get myself over here? What can we do to make this easier on myself today?
Yeah. Enjoying the journey a little bit more while still accomplishing some amazing things, because you're not dismissing yourself or letting yourself off the hook. You're still getting amazing things done. You're just doing it in a way where you're not going to burn yourself out. So you actually can achieve the goals and you actually can get to the finish line. Instead of, like you and I were talking at the beginning, how so many people will start things in January and here it's now February, and so many people fall off of their goals and what they're working on because it gets hard. So this is a way to actually see things through, but in a way that's sustainable, that's kind, that's enjoyable, so that you actually have fun on the journey. And maybe you'll end up in a different place than you expected at the beginning because you didn't know something was possible and you were just kind of like, I'm just gonna fight for this thing. But then if you get to the end and you hated the entire process, I don't think you're gonna like the output. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Like if our goals are making us more stressed out and feel worse afterwards, why are we doing them? Shouldn't we just be working on things that's like adding something or making us feel a little better? And I like what you're saying because it really is a lifelong journey. And I think when you switch your version of success from output, 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 I have to check all these milestones, I have to achieve these things to impress these people or whatever, to am I learning something? Am I growing? And like every day, did I learn something new? Even if I learned from making a mistake or being messy or whatever, did I learn something? Did I grow in some way? Did I see something new or interesting to my brain? Then I can call it a success. Then I could say I succeeded. Because if my goal is to be my own friend and to learn things, throughout my whole life, just to keep learning, I'm automatically going to achieve that goal and feel good about most things I do, no matter what the output is, right? So if you go to write a book and it's not a success or you don't finish it, did you learn something? Did you get something out of that? Did you test out some skills? Okay, well, then you could say it's done. You don't always have to aim for a best-selling novel or award or this or that to let yourself feel done. Let yourself feel done just because you did something and you tried and you put yourself out there and you grew a little bit. And we do that for our kids, don't we? That's the irony, is we are so good at being this kind, encouraging mentor to our own kids. So we need to turn that mom voice on ourselves inwardly, right? And do the same thing for ourselves.
Exactly. It doesn't matter if you win, if you gave it your best effort. So now just say that to ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah, and just let yourself feel done. It's like you have to give yourself permission. Today it's just done. It's fine. It's good. I got to the end of the day and that's enough.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I know you need to get going, but I want to ask you a couple more questions. So, if someone is feeling completely overwhelmed, their plate is too full, and they don't know where to start, what's the first thing you would recommend?
So much like the decluttering advice, I have this metaphor that I use called the time wardrobe. Imagine it's like your time is like a closet, and most of us just have way too much stuff shoved in there, right? And that's the reason why all these organizing systems, all the calendars and planners aren't working for you. You're overcommitting to too much stuff. And moms are especially prone to this. We sign up for way too much stuff for our kids, way too much stuff sometimes for ourselves and our families and whatever. And in the beginning, like any decluttering, it's about saying no and getting really clear on what do we want to experience this week? What's lining up with our values and what we want to accomplish this month, right? And then what can we say no to? Because all the organization systems in the world will not work if your closet is too full, right? It's the same with our time. And you can start to see your weekly schedule like a closet. Like, how much stuff are you piling in there? Chances are you're putting too much stuff in there. And that's why you're feeling overwhelmed. And until we start cutting some of that back and really focusing only on a few areas at a time, instead of trying to tackle everything, then we can work on simple systems. And there's a lot of practical tools in the book that get you looking at, which 3 areas of my life do I want to focus on this month? And what aligns with that and what doesn't? And how do I curate my time more intentionally so it focuses on those things so I can actually take those little steps forward?
Absolutely love it. It always starts with decluttering, doesn't it?
It does. It does. I mean, that's the secret, really. You got to get rid of some stuff so you can see what you need to focus on.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Risa, where can people find you and find your newest book?
So you can find my new book, Get Stuff Done Without the Stress, anywhere where books are sold. It's at Target, Barnes & Noble, bookshop.org, and you can find it on my website, risawilliams.com. And I'm all over Instagram promoting it at Risa Williams Therapy. You can come to my book talk if you're in Los Angeles on February 21st at 7 p.m. at Book Soup, and at Barnes & Noble in Fullerton on March 29th at 2 p.m. So those will be live events where I'll be signing books and answering your questions. Hope to see you there, and check out the Motivation Mindset podcast, which Deanna is a frequent guest on. Her episodes are so popular, so come give us a listen there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Risa. We'll have a lovely day.
Thanks, Deanna. Wonderful to see you.
You too. Bye. Well, thank you so much to Risa for the information she shared with us today. I don't know very many women today that aren't stressed out about all the things we have going on all the time, but I would love to know what stuck out for you the most. So come on over and share. It's your turn. Let me know on Instagram. I am at Wannabe Clutter Free, and you can send me a DM or you can comment on this post. Or if you'd like to join in a deeper conversation, you can come over to Facebook and join the Wannabe Minimalist family group over there and see what we're talking about. We would love to know your perspective. All right. Thank you so much for making this podcast part of your weekly routine. I really do appreciate it. And if you like it and you haven't subscribed, go ahead and do that now. Also, leave us a rating and a review so we know what you like. You can let us know what you want to hear more of as well. All right. Thanks again to Risa for joining us on the show and sharing her wonderful tips. Remember, you can get the show notes at wannabeclutterfree.com/244. And with that, I hope you have an amazing day. Remember, you can do this kind of stuff. Let's just make sure we keep it reasonable so that we're not building up our stress levels. So take care, keep things simple, work on one little area, and implement one of the tips that you learned today in this podcast. I know that you can do it. I believe in you. Can't wait to hear how it goes. Until next week, I'm Deanna Yates, and you've been listening to Wannabe Clutter Free. I'll see you next week. Cheers.